A couple decided to celebrate their anniversary by booking a secluded cabin in a remote forest through Airbnb. The cabin was described as the perfect romantic getaway, surrounded by lush woods and far away from civilization. Little did they know, their anniversary would turn into a nightmare. Upon arrival, they were taken aback by the cabin's rustic charm but soon noticed something odd: a collection of old photographs on the walls, all depicting couples who had stayed there before. Each photo had a handwritten date below it, and the dates went back decades. As night fell, they lit a cozy fire and settled in for a romantic evening. However, strange occurrences began. Whispering voices echoed through the cabin, and shadows danced at the corners of their vision. The couple dismissed these as tricks of their imagination, attributing them to the remote location. But then things took a horrifying turn. In the middle of the night, they awoke to find themselves surrounded by the ghostly apparitions of the couples from the photographs. These spectral figures stared at them with hollow eyes, their expressions a mix of sadness and despair. Panic. The couple tried to leave the cabin, but the door was jammed shut. They could hear the ghostly couples murmuring phrases like, "We never left," and "You can't escape." It was as if the cabin held their trapped souls. Desperation set in as the hours passed. They finally managed to break a window and flee the cabin. As they ran through the forest, they could still hear the eerie whispers following them. After reaching civilization, they reported the haunting experience to Airbnb and to local authorities. The cabin was thoroughly investigated, and it was discovered that it had a dark history of unexplained disappearances. The cabin was removed from Airbnb listings, and the couple's anniversary celebration turned into a terrifying ordeal they would never forget, haunted by the ghostly specters of those who had stayed there before them. A solo traveler decided to book a room in an old, historic mansion listed on Airbnb. The host, an elderly woman, seemed friendly in her messages, and the price was too good to pass up. When the traveler arrived, they were struck by the grandeur of the mansion but also by its eerie atmosphere. The host greeted them warmly but insisted on showing them around the house. As they walked through the dimly lit hallways, the traveler couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was present, even though they were supposedly the only guest. The room they were given was spacious but filled with antique furniture that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. That night, as they tried to sleep, strange sounds echoed through the mansion: footsteps in the corridor, whispers in the walls, and the distinct feeling of being watched. In the middle of the night, the traveler awoke to find the room ice cold, even though they had set the thermostat to a comfortable temperature. They noticed a figure at the foot of the bed, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to be moving closer. Panicking, they turned on the bedside lamp, but the figure disappeared. Terrified, they decided to leave immediately. They found the host sitting in the living room, rocking back and forth in a chair, muttering to herself. She gave them a vacant stare as they rushed out. The traveler reported their unsettling experience to Airbnb, and the listing was promptly taken down. They later discovered that the mansion had a dark history, including tales of previous guests disappearing mysteriously. To this day, the traveler can't explain the chilling encounter and remains haunted by their stay in that eerie mansion. A group of friends decided to book a remote cabin for a weekend getaway through Airbnb. The cabin, nestled deep in the woods, was advertised as a peaceful retreat. However, as night fell, they began to experience strange occurrences. On the first night, they heard unsettling whispers outside the cabin. Assuming it was just the wind, they brushed it off. But the whispers persisted, growing louder and more sinister. They decided to investigate and found a circle of strange symbols etched into the ground near the cabin. Terrified, they reported it to the host, who claimed ignorance. The host agreed to refund their stay, but with no other options available at that hour, the group reluctantly decided to stay one more night. That night, things escalated. They heard footsteps inside the cabin, doors slamming shut on their own, and even glimpsed shadowy figures moving in the darkness. The friends were too scared to sleep and huddled together, watching the cabin's security cameras. As dawn broke, they decided to leave immediately. They packed up and rushed out, but before they could drive away, they noticed something chilling. On one of the security camera feeds, they saw the host standing just outside the cabin, staring at them with a malevolent grin. They contacted the police and reported the incident, but the host had vanished without a trace. To this day, they can't explain the strange events that occurred during their Airbnb stay, leaving them with a lingering sense of dread whenever they think about that remote cabin in the woods.